What we're trying to learn here is how we can project confidence even if we don't feel confident. And there are a few tips and tricks you can use to do that. Now, first of all, you probably hate the sound of your voice in a microphone. I remember feeling exactly like that. When you hear your voice bounce around in the room and you think, that doesn't sound anything like me. Oh, it's awful. Well, we have to get used to hearing our voice through a microphone. The reason it doesn't sound like us is because that's not normally the voice we hear. We hear the sound coming directly out of our mouth and vibrating back into our ears, coming through our jawbone. So when we then hear ourselves being projected around the room, we hear a sound that doesn't sound like us. But that's okay. As long as we are prepared for it, it won't take us by surprise. The more we do public speaking, the more we use a microphone and hear that voice bounce back, the more we'll start to realise, oh, it does actually sound like me. It doesn't not sound like me. And then what we can do is learn to control how our voice sounds. Because what we need to understand is that we are in control. So how do we control our voice? Well, first of all, what happens is when we get nervous, we tend to get tense, especially we stop taking deep breaths. Which means that when we speak more from our chest up here, rather than down from our diaphragm. We don't speak from low down, we speak from higher up. And you can probably hear the difference. My voice, if I speak from up here and speak rapidly with short breaths, loses a bit of its power. It's no longer got the bass and the boom to it. Whereas if I take a bit more time and try to speak from down low in my belly rather than up here in my chest, you can hear that I have a bit more bass. I feel more in control of how my voice sounds. And when it's your voice that you're hearing, it makes you feel a bit better. So practice talking from your belly and not from your chest. Another tip that will help you when it comes to your voice is to clearly enunciate your words. When we get nervous, we speak faster. When we speak faster, we tend to trip over what we're saying and it can become a bit of a disaster. So instead of doing that, we want to focus on clearly stating what we're saying. This comes from, obviously we've practiced before getting up in front of people, and then making sure that when we speak clearly. We lower our pace so that we give ourselves time, our mouth time, to form the shapes of the words and be able to get the next one out clearly. When we know that we're going to get nervous, we control our voice by being more aware of our voice. And so to do that, you need to focus on clarity in what you say, which we call enunciation. We just want to make sure that we form the words clearly for our audience. Now, I know what it's like to feel like you're lacking confidence before getting up on a stage. This was me, and I have built my confidence over time, but sometimes I still get nervous. And if you were like me, you probably get nervous before doing some form of public speaking too. So if you go to my website, there is a free guide for you to download, which will help walk you through how to overcome speech anxiety. That way, it will help you to not feel nervous before you do your speech, or to control your nerves during and even after your speech. So go to my website, download that. Is your free guide to help you overcome your speech anxiety so that you can feel more confident the next time you're on the stage. The next tip to help you calm yourself down and feel more in control, which will help boost your confidence, just simple breathing can really help you to be able to master your confidence. You see, as we get nervous, we tend to take shallow breaths. We already sort of mentioned that. And as we take shallow breaths, anxiety rises in us. We need oxygen to flood our system to fight off the adrenaline which is building because we're about to take on something which we find a bit scary. So, what's the best technique to use to help us to overcome those nerves? Well, we can use something called box breathing. Box breathing is just a pattern we can use to help us to focus our mind on our breathing rather than focusing on just being nervous and then that sort of destroying our confidence. So what do? Well, we think about mentally a box. We breathe in for 4 seconds. I won't do it because it'll take too long on a video. We hold it for 4 seconds. We then breathe out for 4 seconds. And then we wait for 4 seconds. And then we start again. Breathe for 4 seconds. deep breath, then hold it for 4 seconds. You breathe out for 4 seconds, and then we wait 4 seconds before taking the next breath. And the reason we do box breathing is it just helps us to focus the mind, helps us to focus on our breathing, helps us to get big lungfuls of air into our body to calm down the nerves. You don't have to do box breathing. You could just take deep breaths. This is what I personally like to do. I focus on just taking deep breaths in and out, and I focus on that opening line. What's my hook? Where am I starting? Because if I can nail my hook and get it out exactly how I want to, it will sound awesome. Another thing we can do is to make sure when we get on the stage, we don't start speaking immediately when we get there. Get up to the stage, take a second to take a deep breath, and then say your first word as you breathe out of that first breath. Because again, as we said, if you do it when you breathe in, your voice will go high-pitched. Whereas if you do it when you breathe out, then you will sound more in control. You will have that deeper voice, because that out of breath is the sound is going to come from your belly, like we said earlier, and that will really make you sound nice and in control. Getting that first line out without a hitch, nice and controlled at a good tempo, will sound brilliant and will give you confidence from the very start of your speech. Another thing we can do is to use our pace. What happens when you're nervous is you rush. We already said about rushing up to the stage and starting to speak as soon as you get there. But we often rush our way through our speech. And we said earlier as well that as we speak fast, we often could trip over our words. And if we trip over our words and the words don't come out properly, then we lose our clarity, and all the other things we're talking about, it all falls to pieces. And if it starts to fall to pieces as you're talking, you'll start to lose your confidence. So what we need to do is manage our pace. And we do this by putting in pauses. A pause will help you to finish the point you're making, think about the next one, and then start. And it will help your audience to take in what you've just said. Sometimes they need a second, especially if you're changing topic. If you've finished one topic and you're moving on to the next, or you've finished a point and you're moving on to the next, or you've finished your introduction and you're moving into the body of your talk, or you're about to start your conclusion, giving people a second to process what you've said really helps them to be able to understand we're moving on to the next thing. It helps their understanding, and it helps you feel more in control. It sets out a nice pace for your speech. Remember that people are listening and they've got to try to catch up with where you are in your speech. So if you're rushing your way through it, they're going to struggle to maintain the awareness of what you're saying. So don't rush, have a measured pace, and make sure you pause strategically to allow the points you're making to sink in and give you a second to take a breath. And if you sound more in control because you're measuring your pace, you will feel more confident. This is a really, really useful method to making you feel more confident on the stage, especially if you don't feel confident. It's all about the pace that we use. So I just want to reassure you, I have been exactly where you are. I have felt nervous. I have felt unsure about getting up on a stage. I felt like I didn't have the confidence. Yet I have overcome it by using some of these techniques and learning others as well to be able to get up and present to an audience and feel confident in doing so. And if you use that guide I've given you, it will help you to overcome the nerves you feel, which again will just raise your confidence level. So make sure you get that. But you might be thinking, this is great, but how do I outline a speech in the first place? What do I write down for me to follow when I get on the stage? Well, if you want to know that, go to this video here, which is going to walk you through how to outline your speech.